This vitriolic attack, written in 1974, concluded that Dr. Holt's therapy was ineffective and undesirable, but it was also harmful. The NH and MRC now tell us the report has long been out of date. In fact, this is the only copy in existence, collecting dust in the Fremantle Hospital Library. But for 30 years, it's badly damaged, maybe even irreparably damaged, Dr. John Holt's reputation.
As a human being, as a father of children, as someone who I hope is reasonably compassionate, I have no problem with it. As a scientist, I should have a problem with it because before I endorse a treatment, I should insist on seeing the scientific data.
What if he's right? Where does that leave the Cancer Foundation?
I can't answer for the Cancer Foundation, but I can answer for myself as a cancer patient. It would be a crying shame.
But Clive, if Dr. Holt is right, that's the sort of thing that they win Nobel Prizes for.
Certainly right.
Sometimes I think maybe Sophie's reason for getting sick was so people would know about Dr. Holt.
Beautiful face. Remarkable story, isn't it? As we said, how come we don't know about it? As we said earlier, Dr. Holt didn't want any of this publicity. He hasn't spoken to the press, I guess, for 15 years, and he's never done a television interview. So it took us many months to persuade him to finally talk to us.
Its great advantage is that what I do has no side effects.
For the first time in 2.5 years, the tumours hadn't grown.
Welcome back. You've heard some amazing testimonials from his patients, and you're probably wondering what Dr. Holt charges for this treatment. Well, after all the rebates that can be claimed on Medicare, on average, it's a bit over $1,000 for 3 weeks of treatment. It's pretty obvious that Dr. Holt is not after money or fame, and with no side effects from his therapy, he certainly deserves a better deal from the medical establishment than he's had so far.
Dr. Holt, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Now, a lot of people we've spoken to believe that you saved their lives. Did you do that?
I hope so, yes. That's what I aim to do. I think so.
Have you succeeded, though, where other specialists haven't?
Ah, undoubtedly.
Does it please you? Does it satisfy you to think that these people see you as a miracle worker, as a saviour?
Oh, yes, it's very gratifying. But it really is nothing more than the chance discovery of a machine that would make X-ray therapy universally effective.
In person, John Holt is quietly spoken, old-fashioned polite, and surprisingly humble for a man whose patients worship him.
Are you more convinced today than you were 30 years ago that you're on the right track?
Absolutely.
Do you think that what you're doing is far superior to chemotherapy?
Its great advantage is that what I do has no side effects. I've tested the blood function, the biochemical functions, liver and kidneys of every one of the patients that I've used it on, which is many thousand, and I haven't found a signal abnormality.
Would it be fair to say that a majority or many of your cases, you're really getting people as a last resort? They're on death's doorstep anyway?
Most of them are, yes.
I've had 2 years of chemotherapy, radiotherapy and surgery, 5 different types of chemo, and 6 months ago I was told there's nothing more for me.
This is just a tiny part of a nationwide support group we've spoken to over the past 5 months. They all insist that they owe their lives to Dr. Holt.
For the first time in 2.5 years, the tumours hadn't grown. Everything was stable.
I had no choice. I was going to have my bladder out.
And had you been told that you were...
6 months to live.
And where was your cancer? Or what kind?
The mesothelioma.
From asbestos?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
In 1991, beginning 91.
The first day that I went to see Dr. Holt, I was sitting in his waiting room. I must have looked rather nervous, and there was an old lady sitting opposite. And she said, "Don't worry, dear." She was Italian. She said, "Look at me." She said, "They told me to go away and die. I had cancer of liver." She said, "Look at me 10 years later, baby, you'll be all right," like that. And I thought, well, isn't that fantastic?
Now, they all think he's fantastic.
Very scientific approach.
Dr. Holt's support group has spent 20 years writing to health ministers, cancer experts, prime ministers and premiers. But all their letters have been ignored or rejected. In 1991, the WA Cancer Council finished its long trial of Dr. Holt's treatment. It cost them $136,000. Dr. Holt says it was a bogus trial, just the latest in a long campaign to try and discredit him. He says it was conducted under duress, that they chose an unsuitable cancer, a rectal cancer, and that the scientist didn't even understand how his treatment works.
There are some of the cancers like lymphomas and Hodgkin's disease and some of the early breast cancers, and particularly bladder cancer, which respond magnificently.
Do you ever say you can cure cancer?
No.
Why not?
Well, you may not.
They were massive. You'd feel the tumours and they'd be as hard as rocks. You know, they were like granite. And then after you'd have a treatment, there'd be a softness. They were disappearing.
That's 28 years ago.
That's 28 years ago, yes.
It takes a great deal of desperation to go to a practicing expert, an oncologist, a specialist, and then say, well, I don't believe what you're going to say. I'm going to go and see someone who you reckon is a charlatan.
Well, our nursing friends are sceptical. You try to explain it to them, there's no quackery about it. And Dr. Holt is definitely not a money man.
Oh, no.
You know, a lot of us think he should be called St. John. He's such a wonderful person.
Cancer is the biggest killer in Australia. Dr. Holt has been curing cancer victims, or at least making them feel better, for the past 30 years or so. And he's done it for next to nothing. In the same time, we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on cancer research with very limited results. So what's it going to take for governments or the cancer councils or the cancer experts to finally recognise what this bloke does? Is it cynical? Is it too easy to talk about a medical conspiracy?
Well, I don't think it's a medical, it's a scientific conspiracy, I'm sure of that. I'm not sure about medical.
Is it frustrating to you? Is it disappointing to you? Is it upsetting?
Well, it was very upsetting, yes, at the time.
And now you've simply just water off a duck's back.
Oh, yes.
Do you wonder why? Do you scratch your head after all these years?
No, I've learned to shut up and practice in peace and quiet and try and get the best I can, and I'm getting towards it. What I'm doing now is the most interesting thing I've ever done in my life, and frankly, I don't want to leave it alone, despite the fact that I'm getting old.
You don't feel like you should go on the front foot? You've done all that. You've now just decided to let those disbelievers go on disbelieving.
Yeah, sooner or later they may get cancer.
Do you look back on those 30 years that you've done this research with pleasure, with satisfaction, or with frustration?
Oh, great satisfaction.
Yes, indeed, as you should. Remarkable bloke. At the very least, it's time that our health authorities arranged a proper scientific trial of Dr. Holt's treatment. It's soon going to be lost to Australia because it seems he is going to move to Ireland. He is, after all, as we said, approaching 79 years of age. And there's more on that story at our website. There's the address right down, or as usual, you can give us a call or write me a letter. Tell me about your personal experience with Dr. Holt, and we'll tell our audience about that. Welcome back. Our story last night on Dr. John Holt has done what should have happened years ago, I think. It's brought Dr. Holt's work to national attention. Our medical authorities and even our governments may now be forced to sit up and take notice of a man who's been so shamefully ignored for so long. Our phones and our faxes and our emails, as I showed you, have been in meltdown right around the country since last night. It was the same story at Dr. Holt's support group and at his clinic in Perth. Have a look at this.